Morning, friends. It's the 30th of May, and hopefully not the last May for humanity. Well, the southern countries will survive. The northern countries, that's a really big question. May will come, but who's going to be here celebrating the end of May and the start of summer? That's a big question. Look, we've gotten to the point where, we really are heading to probably nuclear war. I'm giving up on any chance of avoiding it. I really, at least a limited nuclear war, I don't see any chance of avoiding it. And a limited nuclear war, unless it's strictly tactical, and I doubt it. Anyone tactical will see the destruction of Poland, because that's the staging point for NATO. So the Poles are screwed any which way. Even if it found that many hits on them directly, the fallout will be going right on top of them all summer long. At this point, with British help and British drones, British Portuguese drones, Ukrainians attacked 2 Russian nuclear radars, nuclear launch warning radars. So these are over-the-horizon radars. Luckily, they didn't do much damage to them. But the fact is now they're aiming. These radars play absolutely zero roles in any of the conflict in Ukraine and in the new Russian territories in the west. I'm sorry. And in fact, these radars are designed so they can't even see that area. They are looking over the horizon, right? So they're early warning radars. So you damage these radars, then on the Russian side, you really have no choice but to go DEFCON 2 and treat any launch, any American launch, or any European launch, any ballistic missile going in any direction as a nuclear attack, and then exterminate the West. That's the logic of how it goes. I am absolutely 1,100% guarantee you that this was all, well, it may not have been American in this case, but it was British, so it was Western. Not just sanctioned, but controlled. And once you're trying to strike the nuclear deterrent, that means you're going to nuclear war. That's it. The West has gone over that line. They're still using Ukrainian meat. But Sweden gave over 2 AWACS planes, electronic warfare and communication planes, to the Ukrainians for those F-16s that are coming in. And considering an F-16 can be modified to carry a nuclear warhead, well, they need to be treated as a possible nuclear attack. And again, the West is looking at mushroom clouds. It's about as obvious as it gets. Personally, I think, in no uncertain terms. You see, the problem is this. Everybody likes to project their moral values on other people. In the case of Americans, the American government is the most vicious government that's probably ever existed in humanity. No matter the little stories it tells its people about freedoms and the right to life and all the other shit, America has been at constant war since the day it was created, and before that. And it's got in 260 years of American history, even less, 1774, so you're looking at what, 26, 200 and about 250 years. Yeah, 250 years. It's less than 12 years of peace. Let that sink in. 95% of America's existence has been war. Mostly wars that America started. Or if it didn't start, it egged someone on till they had to retaliate. And then it used as an excuse. The Mexican-American War is a prime example of that. So 96% of America's existence has been murdering somebody outside of America, including the Confederacy. You know, I mean, if you want to understand the Confederacy, not only were there black Confederate soldiers, no matter what the Union rewrote the history as, but the Indians living in those areas were fighting for the Confederacy. Because the Confederacy treated them well. And they knew what was happening, what was coming from the north. That's right, Apaches, other Lumbees, other Indians fought as regulars and as non-regulars for the Confederacy. Well, did they forget to teach you that in school? Well, they don't teach much in American schools these days, except 99.9% propaganda. But yes, they fought. And they fought because they knew they were going to get a much better shake from the Confederacy than they would ever have gotten from the Union. From the, at that point, relatively Marxist-leaning Union. Yes, Lincoln was a pen pal of Marx. And yes, half his generals were 48ers. And if you don't know what a 48er is, you really need to look it up. 48ers were the 1848 Marxist revolutions all over the various German kingdoms and Italian kingdoms. 18 revolutions. They were crushed, and Marxist scum ran to America. And they created, at that point, the Republican Party. Not the Republican Party, you know, the day. They switched roles. The Democrats were the Conservative Party. And there was the Democrats and the Whigs, and then the Republicans came up. The American system can only support two parties. So the founding father of America tried to create a system that had no parties and created something much worse. A system that could only hold two parties. And those two parties have now grown into really one uniparty. Same corruption, same day. So there you go. So the only thing the Americans, and the problem, the Americans, they project their rabid militarism and their readiness to do anything to anyone with no moral limits. No matter how much they talk about moral limits, there are no moral limits. You can just watch that clown Kirby. I won't call him an admiral. Any man that makes admiral without ever commanding is not an admiral. He's a desk jockey. You watch that Kirby, that clown, that psychopathic clown dancing around with Gaza as a prime example. And the crap he's, we're just feeding the Israeli genocide machine. We have no responsibility, though. We're just feeding the Ukrainian genocide machine. We have no responsibility. Oh, you have all the responsibility. And they're projecting all their shortcomings and all their evil onto Russia. And they always have. Meanwhile, the Russian leadership has a bad tendency of trying to project its desires for peace, and Russia has always tried to do peace. Most of the time, when Russia has been in wars, a lot, and almost all those wars, someone else started. And we had to respond. If they'd leave us all alone for the last 1,000 years, we'd probably be half the size we are now, if not even smaller. We just got really, really good at butchering Western aggressors for 1,000 years. I mean, reality speaking, at the end of the day, we could find more common ground to live peacefully with the Mongols. Well, once we beat them off and threw off their yoke, than we could ever do with the Central Western Europeans. And by Western, west of us, so the Poles are prime. First big invasion of Russia by Westerners was in 1012 AD. Knyaz Prince Bolesław Chrabry and his Holy Roman Empire allies. Bolesław Chrabry was a Pole. And it hasn't stopped since. But now we're getting to the point where we're literally looking at nuclear weapons being used. And by the way, Trump's blah, blah, blah. Trump is no better than Biden in the end of the day, I mean, reality speaking. And he's shown that. First of all, he whored himself for that bill to get money to Ukraine. As soon as he saw the opportunity for it. Oh, I'm sorry. That money wasn't a grant. It was now a credit. Okay, whatever. Trump helped push that through. So he showed himself to be just the same political whore as the rest of them. Same opportunist, parasite. Nothing needs to be waited from him, but more of the same. And now he's blah, blah. Oh, if this happened, I would have bombed Moscow. Dumb fuck. If you would have bombed Moscow, I would have bombed Washington and New York. And Trump Towers would have been a friggin' foundation. Of course he wouldn't have done that. And any idiot that believes him, well, God bless you. God bless your soul, as they say in the South. I mean, you got to be a total, absolute dipshit to believe anything that Trump would have bombed Moscow. Okay, maybe he would have. There would be no America left, but that's a different case. So anything he says, he's just as whacked and stupid crap coming out of him. He's not suffering from dementia. That's the only thing. He's just an opportunist. But then again, almost all American politicians are opportunists, which is why we are at the place where we are right now, which is on the edge of actual big war. And obviously, nobody in Washington is going to back down. And yeah, more likely this will first turn into a conventional war, and then U.S. Army is going to get its teeth beaten in. Believe me, it will. This isn't these aren't Afghan tribesmen. America had problems with those. This is a full-scale war. And again, just so you understand, the Russian army, the Russian armed forces in general, the Russian army right now stands at 1.5 million. About 500, 600,000 of those are involved right now in Ukraine. Of course, that's not all combat soldiers. That's combat support too, and service support. And there's another 300, 400,000 waiting on the wings for the big offensives, which still leaves more than 500,000 waiting for NATO. And that's troops on the ground or in preparation. Volunteers are still coming in at 30, 40,000 a month. So they're going to have a draft. We don't need a draft. First of all, we don't need a draft, period. We do have a conscription draft twice a year for 1 year service, and those guys do not get sent in there. They're not even being brought up to Belgrade for the most part. And they're not involved. They don't need to be. The contract army is gigantic and growing. And all the little American-sponsored terrorist attacks, IGIL-K, or whatever other fantasy name they're coming up with this week. Or ISIS-K. Well, there's still plenty of letters left in the alphabet, of course, so I guess ISIS can still go on for a while. That's seen for what it is. A Washington or a London-sponsored terror attack. Or maybe France these days. And that, by the way, just pisses people off even more. And gets even more people coming in. And just to understand, the reserve in Russia, the more or less active reserve, is 2 million soldiers. The reserve of men and women, to a much smaller view, but of men who have military experience, is over 30 million. And bet your damn well last bottom dollar, those 30 million, the vast, vast, vast majority will go fight. Any kind of big attack. That just spurs more and more. I mean, it's at the point that there's more volunteers that can be taken in right now. And then we've got foreign volunteers coming in too. Because it turns out quite a few people have an axe to grind with NATO countries, the Western countries are involved in this. And the French have already come in. And the French got their asses kicked. The 100 guys they sent in as the avant-garde. So I really do hope the rest of the French come in. Because they're going to get wiped out. Not decimated. Not every 10th Frenchman is going to get killed. They're not going to get decimated. They're going to get annihilated. Because guess who becomes number one? And the training bases in Western Ukraine. Thank you for the target. One of them just got taken out 2 days ago. And apparently, between 150 some Ukrainians that they were training, quite a few NATO guys went to meet Saint Bandera in hell. So bring them in, set up your bases. We'll be happy to wipe them out. And the hell with who else is on there. If they're on those bases, they know their lives are at stake. If they're stupid enough to follow stupid orders from stupid politicians that don't give a damn, oh well, they get what they get. I mean, that's where it's at right now. So we really are basically on the edge of nuclear war. I don't know, maybe Russia needs to do a demonstration to wake the ignorant masses up in the West. You know, a 10 megaton nuclear warhead over Lvov. Not a NATO country. That should be a nice spark of rational thought in a lot of people's heads. This is where you got nuclear war, what you want. This is what it looks like. Now multiply it by 1,000. I mean, reality speaking, just so the ignorance in the Northeast understand, if there's a nuclear war, a real full nuclear war, from basically the upper tip of New York City down to Richmond is going to be gone. There will be nothing left alive. And if anything survives the blasts, there's always a Poseidon with somewhere between a 50 and 100 megaton nuclear warhead sitting off the coast to put a nice big tidal wave in to wipe whatever's left. I mean, think what a 100 megaton nuclear warhead will do. I mean, a 20-ton nuclear warhead will pretty much wipe out most of New York. Now, this is a 100 megaton nuclear warhead underwater. The wave is going to generate, it's going to be something around 600-700 meters high coming in. Sure, it won't go that far inland, but it'll take out everything along the coast. And if people are still so stupid to play games, well, they're either absolutely brain dead ignorant or they're Satanists and they're bringing you as sacrifices to Satan. And I'm betting on number 2 right now. I mean, you can bet whichever you want, but I'm betting on number 2. And since they're starting to hit nuclear warning radars, you know, yep, that says everything there's left to say. This is going to go straight to nuclear. So it's going to be one hell of a hot summer, I guess. Or maybe fall. Unfortunately, but that's how it looks. By the way, population density. Let's talk about America and Russia. Population density. Moscow has Moscow province has about 20% of the Russian population. No, about 15. Okay, that gets wiped out pretty well. Other major cities. But you know, the vast majority of Russian population is spread across a large landmass. Now let's flip sides to America. 80% of the American population lives along the east or west coast. The majority along the east coast, as a matter of fact. Flyover country is pretty empty. Think about that. And Europe, with its high density of population, it's on that small shithole peninsula. The fallout alone will cover anything that blast won't fall. It won't cover. Just think about that. But unfortunately, the people at power don't. So, well, I hope you, dear listener, are thinking about it, and I hope you, dear listener, are going to do something about it. Because otherwise, you, dear listener, and your children are all gone. I mean, we're probably facing the same fate, but we're not starting this. But hey, whatever it is. If the Yanks want a war, they're going to get the war that they want, and the one that they don't want. Oh well. God bless.